Welcome to Tucker Carlson. Today, our next guest does not need an introduction. You never hear the word movie star anymore. Our guest has been a movie star, a legitimate movie star, for over 50 years. He won an Academy Award. He's also one of the very few people in Hollywood, maybe the entire state of California, whose politics are smart, well-considered, rooted in evidence, and wise. He is Jon Voight, and we are grateful to have him with us today in the studio. Jon Voight, thank you very much.
Tucker, great to be here.
So I cannot, I know you're going to hate this, but I can't control myself. Our producers have put together a montage of clips of various films you've been in, going back a long way. And it's amazing how many of them, I'm not even much of a moviegoer, that I have seen personally and that have kind of shaped our culture. And so here's just a very quick best of.
Great.
Joe Buck from Texas.
Enrico Rizzo from the Bronx.
And I'm gonna buy you a drink.
Abort, that's an order. Fish, river style.
Wow, not bad.
We're gonna have to get that on film next time.
Muhammad, and to think I gave up a lucrative practice for the likes of you.
I'm the best thing ever happened to you, Cosell. Without me, you'd be a tall white man with a microphone in his mouth.
And without me, you'd be a mouth.
I got a sure thing happening. Worth $4 million. I could use a partner.
I looked into the horseshoe. Mickey's telling the truth.
Money's real, Ray.
We will hear arguments in Roe against Wade. You may proceed.
The winner is Jon Voight.
Boy, that spans that's movie history. Up until the present day, I was watching this. Do you remember making all those movies? But let me just start with the first one, Midnight Cowboy. I don't know how old you were, not very old, and it became, one of the people still watch it. I mean, that's one of the great
28
films ever made. 28, amazing. I read somewhere that you got paid basically nothing for that movie.
Yeah, well, I was up for this wonderful role. I read the book. Somebody gave me the book when I was in doing a bunch of plays in Washington, D.C., and this actor gave me the book, and he said, you should play this part. I looked nothing like that part. I was very skinny, and I looked at this attractive fellow, and I said, why did he give me this thing? And I read through it, and I said, oh, wow, this is an interesting piece. And I had known Dusty Hoffman, and I sent him the book. Not that he even read it from me, but a couple of years later, he was decided to do it because he'd done The Graduate, and he made it work. I remember everything about the pursuit of that piece from having, once I read it, I saw something's in this. I know that this, given to the wrong people, can be a very vulgar film, but I think it can be very powerful and very touching and have something to say. And this character's great for me. And I knew Dusty could do that other character.
So you just felt it right away. This was the part.
You're always looking for something that sparks you, And I really loved this piece. I loved what it could be. And then I had known Dusty, as I say. And then when we got to work on it, I was as happy as I've ever been because every day I would go to that set to do these wonderful scenes. To me, they were just wonderful scenes. And I knew I was protecting that character. If that character had any vanity to the work on him, if he tried to be cool or do this, or the choices were wrong, it would destroy the piece. He had to be this foolish fella who was a sweet guy you cared for, but didn't have the equipment in life, and just trying to make a way, and we cared for him. And he could break your heart. And the same thing was true with Dusty. You had to get the right guy for Ratso.
When you're making something like that, can you tell when it's working?
With me, I felt we had all the right ingredients. We worked with this wonderful director, John Schlesinger, who had just come off of Academy Award with Darling. And I happened to see one of his films, A Kind of Loving, and it was a great film with Alan Bates and young Julie Christie. And I knew this guy understood certain things about human behavior and detail and working out the characters. And I thought he was perfect for it, and he turned out to be perfect for it. So I was very fortunate, Tucker, very fortunate to be in that team. And I looked around, and I was surrounded by all the best that I could have possibly had for that journey. And I was sure we were going to do a good job with it, yeah.
And then everything must have just changed immediately after that. It was such a big, I mean, people still talk about it 50 years later.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
What happened to your life after you made that?
Well, it's like you, Tucker. You see, once you hit, right? Did you know you were?
I've been laboring in the vineyard for a long time.
Do you know that you're number one?
No.
Does it break?
No.
You know, your stride.
They don't text me the ratings.
Yeah, but anyway, you know, when something like that happens, yes, it really changed my life dramatically. But
where were you living at the time?
I was living in New York. I had a little apartment in New York, and there's lots of little stories. I'll tell you one little story.
Please.
Because you can always cut these things, you know.
We don't cut.
No, you might. I lived in an apartment on 104th Street on the west side, and I was told that I was in the running for the film. It went back and forth. I did a screen test, and they were testing me against other people and all sorts of things. And it was a two-year journey to get into that position. And I was called by my agent at that time. I had an agent, and he said, you know, it might not be lost. They want to call you this morning. John Schlesinger wants to call you Saturday morning. And who knows, you might get this part, John. So Saturday morning, I got up early. It was raining. I went out to get some groceries early because I was going to get this call at about 10 o'clock or so. And I got the groceries. I'm walking back to my apartment, and there was this man in the middle of the street in the pouring rain. And I had a little umbrella, and he didn't have anything. And he was walking around like this. And he was a boxer. He was a black fellow, boxer, that I knew was a homeless fellow. He's in the middle of the street. And I said, George, what are you doing out here? You gotta get to shelter, kid. And oh yeah. I said, and I knew he was an alcoholic, and I said, look, George, you see that liquor store? And that woke him up. He looked, oh, where? I said, that liquor store, I'm going to go over and get a bottle of liquor, and I'm going to go up to my apartment. You come up to my apartment with me. You got to get out of this thing. So I took George and me, went over to get a bottle of liquor. We went up to my apartment. And my parents had always warned me, don't do something with strangers, all this stuff.
Don't invite the homeless into your house for a drink.
Exactly right, yeah.
I give the same advice to my children.
Exactly right, very, very sage advice. But anyway, so I had him up there, and I made him a tuna fish sandwich, I remember. And this terrible looking tuna fish sandwich, but it was food for him, you see. And I said, you can have a little the drink, but take some of the food. Anyway, I had him in the apartment, and I told him I was an actor. I was waiting for a call from, could change my life, I said. And he says, I'll pray for you. I know you're going to get it. You're going to get it. You deserve it. Stuff like that. I said, okay, George. I said, the call's going to happen any second. Phone rings. I get up, go to the phone. It was a phone. In those days, we didn't have them in our pockets. It was on the wall in my kitchen. I picked up the phone. I said, George, come over here. I said, hello. And he says, and I get the phone. Hello, John. Jon Schlesinger here. Look, John, we're looking at your work and the screen test, and we're thinking about you. And I'd like to see you again because I haven't seen you since the screen test. Could you jump over here? I'm on the east side, and we'll just take a look at each other once again before I make a decision. I said, I'll certainly try, John. It's raining out. See what I can do to get there as quickly as possible. Okay, thank you. Thank you, John. See you soon. And the guy's there. George is there. Listen to every word, see? And he says, I hope you get it. I hope you get it. You deserve it. Okay, George, listen, I'm going to leave now. If you have to go, I grabbed a coat. I was really a wonderful, good fellow at that time. And I said, here's a coat. If you're going to go out, take the coat. But if you want to stay, I'll be back as soon as I can. And it may take me an hour or whatever, but you're willing to, whatever. and try to take a little bit of that sandwich. You see, I'm watching out for him. Now, he looked at the sandwich, he didn't like the sandwich. But anyway, so I left. I got a cab pretty quick, and I went over to saw Jon. And he was true to his word. He just wanted to say hello and see, you know, anything wrong with anything that you can see a difficulty in the part? No, Jon, I think I'm going to be good in this part. If I get it, I think I'll do a good job for you. And what about this? What about it? I said, okay, well, that's it. Just wanted to see you. Thanks. I'll call you within an hour. I said, great. I get back. George is right there still looking at the sandwich. He finished a little bit of the liquor, though. I noticed. I'm watching, like, you know, I watched how far it went down. Not really. But anyway, so he's sitting there. So I told him, you know, I was going to get this call. And I found out in the meantime, that he had 5 girls, 5 daughters. They didn't talk to him. They're in New Jersey. And I think I made a call before the other one. No, it was afterward. I said, we're going to call your wife and see if we can talk to your daughters, you know, stuff like that. Anyway, phone rings. Come on, George, let's see what we got. Get on the phone. Hello, Jon. Jon Sussman here. Well, Jon, congratulations. We're going to go with you for this part. I said, Jon, that's wonderful. He said, is there anything you want us to tell me before we begin? I said, no, except I think you've made the right choice, Jon. I think I'm going to be terrific in this part. I can't wait to get to work. He said, well, I'll see you tomorrow at costumes, whatever. Thank you, Jon. I got the part. Oh, I'm so glad, George says. I'm so glad. I prayed for you. I knew you were going to get it. I knew you were going to get it. You deserve it. He was so happy, you know. So he called and then he would call his wife, his daughters, and I left him with it, and I heard them laughing a little bit, so I knew it was okay. And it's funny, you go back on these things, and you think about these moments in life when people suffering and stuff, and they feel a little better. It's, something that that's the real joy of life.
Yes, it is.
Give a little something. So then we go back to the room, right? We go back into the living room, and we're sitting there, and he says, "I want to tell you something." I said, What, George? He says, I took this pause, thinking. And then he finally looked up and he said, I want to tell you something, but I forgot what I wanted to tell you. I said, oh, that's okay, George. I know what you wanted to say. And whatever that was. And I felt I knew everything.
Oh.
This guy hadn't had I wrote this up somewhere, but he hadn't had anything to root for in a long time.
Yeah.
And
whatever happened to him?
He just wanted to thank me, really. That's all he wanted to do. I wrote down, and when I wrote it, said he wanted to thank me, wanted to warn me, against getting hit too many times and get up when you get, whatever it was. I had this whole idea of what he wanted to say to me. But anyway, and then he went out. I said, it's still raining a little bit. He says, there's a woman I can see now. I'm going, so thanks very much. And he left, and I never saw him again.
But he was there the day that your life changed.
Yes, and I have to say, I give him credit. That moment between the two of us, I give him credit for me getting the part, because I don't think I would have been as poised and had things in perspective the way I did at that moment. Because looking at his situation and my situation, you know, I was really involved with his life and knew what he was going through, and very grateful for all the things I had. And when I went, the role didn't seem so overwhelming to me. I didn't get nervous when I spoke to John Schlesinger. I had a certain amount of confidence, and I think that made the difference. So he gave me, you know, and I gave him.
Amazing. And nothing was ever the same for you after that?
No, it was quite different. Yeah, all of a sudden I was one of those people that.
What did you think of that?
What did I think of?
Well, all of a sudden you go from being a working actor and, you know, acting on Broadway or off Broadway, and, you know, people you work with respect you. You go from that to a guy who can't go to the drugstore without being pawed.
Yeah. Well, I had a little experience. I had an experience before that where I had done some very good work with a play called A View from the Bridge with Bobby Duvall playing the lead. And so I had a little experience with feeling good about my work and getting attention for it as well. So I had a little bit of that. But then this other thing that happened, you know, there's no way to prepare for that kind of thing.
For being internationally famous? No.
Yeah, all of a sudden. And you have to understand, well, I deeply understand what the kids go through, what someone goes through with big talent. You know, I've seen many of them come, you know, and there's going to be, he keeps turning out these talented people. So they, you know, there's specific talents, and they come and all of a sudden we discover them, and it's very, very exciting. So.
But what's it like for them?
For them, it's all of a sudden you become very important to people. Your thoughts become important, you see. So you get a microphone put in front of you, and you got a lot of people listening to what you say, and so some people, it's a little bit mind-boggling. Only your parents know who you really are at that time, and if you have parents that say, "Don't say silly things like that, John. Just be a nice person and do whatever it is," you get some advice from somebody, then you're okay. But if you get lost in some other things, like what's going on today, people feel that they have to say something important, and they listen to the wrong people, and they say the wrong things.
So many people who get famous young, not all obviously, but a lot, self-destruct.
Well, many do, yeah.
Why is that? They get what they want and it destroys them.
Well, I think that it's just that other thing. You're talking about the attention that they get and this feeling that you're important. It's hard not to succumb to a little of that. Do you see? Yeah. That you start thinking you're important. and so you really depend on people who tell you the truth, who aren't afraid to say the difficult things to you, you know. You really need...
Did you have those?
Guys, I did. I had good parents, and I have a couple of brothers that are pretty honest with me, too. But I still got carried away a little bit, and I went through some stuff. But I think also in life, if I might get philosophical.
I hope you will.
Yes.
Because you've lived it.
In life, I think that those early years, you tend to make mistakes that you kind of make up for throughout the rest of your life.
Yes.
In a certain sense.
You've got time to atone.
It's lessons. I think we're here for lessons. That's what I think. And I think that if we're very fortunate to have very good guidance in the young years, you know, and we're blessed with certain things, we can get by that. But most of the time, everybody's here for lessons of some sort. If you're here for lessons. You're here to grow, you know. So I made my mistakes, and then I made my effort to pull away from them, too, and got a lot of help during that. So I'm feeling pretty good about myself now. I'm always a little shaky because I always don't want to make mistakes. You know what I'm saying?
I don't know what you're saying. It's good. I mean, but I know very well what you're saying. In fact, what are some of the lessons that you learned?
Well, I think the biggest lesson that I learned to date has to do with God. I was raised Catholic.
Yes.
And I was a good Catholic boy.
So your parents were sincere Catholics?
My mother was devout. My dad didn't go to church much. He had a bad back, so it was hard for him to go to church anyway, to sit in a pew or for any length of time. But he was somebody who just had a wonderful attitude about life, and he was spiritual. He had his own spiritual way. He had his own individual way. He used to watch a fellow who reminds me of you. His name was Bishop Sheen. Did you ever see Bishop?
No.
Archbishop Fulton J. Sheen?
Yeah, famous guy.
Great guy. He's got that charisma you have, you see. And that's a real big compliment. I mean, you have a great charisma. And but he has that highly intelligent guy. He used to have this chalkboard, and he would go up and design these things weekly. He would have this show. And so far as I know, never referred to notes of any kind, and had this show perfectly blocked. You know, this is the old days when, you know, and he would move around and they'd follow him with the big cameras, you know, and he was so brilliant. But anyway, my father used to watch him all the time, and I think that's where he got his spiritual weekly lift, you see. Did
it rub off on you as a kid?
Well, it didn't really early on. I lost my way a little bit when I got older. My mother used to go to Mass every week, and sometimes in the middle of the week, too. And she never scolded us for not getting up and going to Mass as we grew, but she always was very devout. But I didn't have that connection I didn't feel that sense of God, you know?
Yes.
I knew what right and wrong was, and you know, up to a point before I overstepped the boundaries. But but there was a time in my life when I was really suffering, and then I experienced something that brought me to this understanding that I wasn't alone.
What happened?
Now, you want me to tell you?
I do.
I'm in trouble. No, you brought it up, John. Why did you bring it up if you didn't want to talk about it? Tucker Carlson got it out of me. Well,
I won't tell anyone.
Okay, no, you don't. Listen, I was in a lot of trouble at one point. Had a divorce, had some problems. And I was in this little house that I had. And I was really suffering for many reasons. My career was a little bit in flux at that time, and lots of things were going on. My relationship to my kids and wife and stuff. And I was on the floor. I found myself on the floor saying, "It's so difficult. It's so difficult." I said it out loud. And I heard in my ear, "It's supposed to be difficult." Can you imagine? Can you imagine?
Like a separate voice telling you
Yes.
that.
It's supposed to be difficult. A voice of wisdom, kindness, you know, clarity. I mean, it had so much resonance, this voice.
What a message. It's supposed to be difficult.
Can you imagine? I mean, this is it. And I will, boom, what? And I got up, and and I can tell you, Tucker, that moment in time, at that time I knew, I said, you know, what it meant was, I'm not alone.
Yes.
Everything is known. Everything is known. I am known. That's what it meant to me. Whoa. This is...
Did you expect it? Were you calling out for God?
What? Do you expect it? No, but knock me out. Now I have to proceed with my life, right? But I felt tremendous energy. It's somebody's rooting for me. It's like, don't give up. It's like, you know, there's a purpose here. You know, you've got some ways. You got a ways to go, son. You know what I'm saying? Whatever you might imagine it meant. Do you see? And I felt great. Whew. And so the next morning, And I'm not a person who really prays with the idea that anybody's listening up to that moment. Now I know we're covered, man. Everything we think, everything we say, everything. You're known. You know, like they say that God knows every bird that falls. You know? This is us too, kids. We all are known. We're being observed and helped and loved. And we're expected to get up and, you know, do battle, do something, do what's right, whatever it is, you see. There's a purpose here. And the purpose here is to learn our lessons and grow. And what's the big deal? To give to each other. You know, to be here to be of help. I mean, this is what you figure out. But anyway, then at that moment, I was just interested in me surviving. And so the next morning I get up, I say, "What do you got for me today?" And I turn on the radio. And here's what came up. I swear, this is what happened when I turned the radio on. Having some fun. I'm having fun, you know what I mean? Because I'm not taking myself too seriously, but it's serious. I turn on the radio, it says, "I'll build a stairway to paradise with a new step every day." What? It's another one. Wait a minute. I mean, what's going on here? Anyway, I had that kind of thing going on for several days, you know, where things were happening to me. And then I started, I was kind of drawn to certain things from that point on. And I've had many, many experiences, but that was the beginning.
So that's the moment when you realize that God's real, knows you, and is on your side.
Right.
What were the implications of that?
Well, I had to straighten out. If I'm going to be a vessel for God, I better be cleaner than I was. You know what I mean? I better be a righteous fellow.
How hard was that?
Well, you know, I've always had good examples in my life. My dad, as I said, was a very righteous man. My mother, and I've had many good people in my life. So I just got off track a little bit, and I realized it at that time, and so I worked since then to be a better fellow.
What did it do for your joy levels, for the way you feel every day?
That's interesting. You know, I said just a couple of days ago, I was asked about something, and I said that I have fear of the Lord. You know, they say have fear of the Lord.
Yeah.
I got it. I am really afraid. I'm afraid of offending God, right? Because God is everything. God is love. God is, you know, all these beautiful things, beauty, everything. And how can I live up to that? I need a lot of help. But I think that's the fear of the Lord. It keeps you on the track. You know what I'm saying? It's not a fear of frightened of getting attacked by anything. It's a fear of offending, fear of not living up to.
Yes.
A fear of doing the wrong thing, you know, of making a terrible mistake. So all of that, you know. But I've been a happier fella. I'm a much happier. I mean, I'm a I may not look like it right now. I don't know what I look like, but I'm a happy fella.
How did it change your view of the world?
Well, it gave me an idea of what we're here for, I think, you see. And you can see that people get quite amiss, you know. They're in lots of trouble. People don't know where they're at, and they don't know what they're doing. And, you know, if I see kids doing something out of line, I'll tell them, you know what I mean? I'll say, you know, don't take that weed. You know, you're losing brain cells. What do you want to do that for? You need every brain cell you got to live life properly. You know, you're a pretty intelligent guy. You can be of help to somebody. Don't do that to yourself. You know, you're hurting other people by doing it. Stuff like that. So that's the way I feel.
So you live as...
Is this really a Tucker Carlson show?
Well, I'm really
What the
interested.
hell is
I'm
going
interested
on?
because I'll
Here.
tell you. Well, I'll just be totally transparent about it. Because you've.
I'm impressed with you, Tucker. You can't make any mistakes from me.
No, I'm just interested because you've lived this amazing life, and you've lived it at a high level for a long time. But you've lived it in a world that's very different from you. Like you're one of the very few people who have said, I don't have exactly the same views as everyone around me.
I would say so.
And I admire that. And so I'm always interested in
how that happened.
Yeah, how that happened.
Yeah, for sure.
So what was the response you got from the people around you in Hollywood as your worldview started to change a little bit?
Well, I think for the most part, people found me a much nicer person to be with, I would say.
Yeah.
I didn't lose any of my drive to do my work. I love acting. I love what we're trying to do with a story. My dad, by the way, was a great storyteller. He was a golf professional. He was the son of immigrants. His father couldn't pronounce his name. His name was Elmer, and his father used to call him, he was from Czechoslovakia, called him Alamir. Alamir, listen to me. Alamir. And my father could never understand why his father named him something he couldn't pronounce. But
I think that's a fair question. I got to be honest.
Yeah, but my dad was just a wonderful storyteller, and I love stories because of that. He used to tell us stories at night when he'd come back from teaching golf all day.
Where did he teach?
Taught in Sunningdale Country Club in Scarsdale, New York.
Yeah.
And where he grew up in Yonkers, and he had an accident which prevented him from going on the tour professionally as a golfer. But he taught golf, and we were the beneficiaries of that. My two brothers and myself, and we had him in our lives, intimately all those growing years. So, and he used to tell stories at night. He'd lie down with us, and we had a double-decker bed. We lived in one little room, and the eldest had his own bed, and then I had the bottom bunk because I was the second oldest, and my younger brother had the top bunk. And my dad would lie down with us at night, and with the light coming in from the crack in the door from the kitchen, I'd see his face, and he'd say, "Well, boys, I had a great day today at the tea. I taught so and so and so," and he'd start that way, and then he'd say, "Now, what kind of story do you want tonight?" And we'd say, espionage. This is when I'm 5 years old. I said espionage because he taught us these words, espionage, spy story. So he would tell us about. Then this is during the war. And he would tell us stories like that, and then he'd tell us stories about knight in shining armor and the beautiful ladies beautiful woman that he fought for or whatever. And we didn't like those stories. They were mushy stories, We wanted the adventure stories or the stories of his life. He made himself a story in his own life. Little Elmo, who was a kind of a scamp, and he had a friend, Dominic Palermo, who was left back twice and had size 14 shoes. I mean, it's stuff like that. So anyway, these wonderful stories, and I loved the way he had a beginning, middle, and end, and he had a great voice, and these stories were fundamental to me, and I think I wanted just to be like my dad. I wanted to tell stories that gave people joy and insight and stuff like that.
Did you become a good golfer?
I was a fair golfer. I have all sorts of stories. You want to know what happened to my golf? I don't know this may be the silliest interview you ever did because there's no substance in this.
What, are you kidding? This is the substance. This is life.
Okay, so here's my story about golf. I was a pretty good golfer. I started at 12 to play golf, even competitively. 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. 5 years I gave to the golf. And in the 17th year, I was playing in a tournament in a very good golf club that had a driving range, and our club didn't have a driving range. So I always thought if I had a driving range, I would have hit the ball a little further or would have whatever. But I was pretty good. Anyway, I'm having a good round, and I'm coming down the 17th hole, and I pull my drive a little bit off the fairway, and I'm lining my shot up, and I hear from the bushes behind me where the driving range was, I hear like that, like a rocket's going off. I look back, get back up to hit my shot. I hear it again. What the hell? And then I said, I'm going to go see. So I went back, and I had a caddy at that time. We both went back. We looked through the bushes to see what was going on. And we looked, and here the thing came back. We look over, and we see this kind of heavy-set kid hitting the ball. I said, what the heck is this? He says, oh, that's that kid Jack Nicklaus from the South. I said, I looked at that kid, Jack Nicklaus. From the time I saw him to the time I walked to my ball, I gave up golf. I said, that's a game I can't play. This guy's just, you know.
Did you ever see him again?
I never saw him ever. I never met Jack. But I've been waiting to see him, to tell him that story.
He single-handedly destroyed
my golf career.
But that's amazing.
Yeah.
So when did you publicly identify as a non-liberal in Hollywood?
You know, it was over the years. After the Vietnam, I was on the left at the end of the 60s. That's when I came to prominence as an actor and became public. And what was going on at that time in my generation was a bunch of stuff from the left, right?
Yeah.
So they were marching against the war and all of that, you know. And I wasn't as outspoken as others were, but I was there. And then we pulled out of Vietnam. And when we pulled out of Vietnam, 2.5 million people were murdered in Laos, Cambodia, and Vietnam. So much suffering and bloodshed. And I saw the people on the left turn their backs to all the suffering and just walk away, patting themselves on the back that they had succeeded in ending this war, that they did it. And it bothered me. And that's what bothered me. From that point on, I started to get another view of what was going on, what was happening. And I eventually found myself with a little family that were very good people, Jewish family, that are still with me today. And with them I grew and learned many things. And we grew together in understanding of the political realities that were in the world and in our country. And I just grew into it. You know, I initially, when I was speaking out or you know, taking a stand, I made this major mistake. So I didn't speak out for a long time. But then I started to realize it's necessary. Somebody's got to stand up and say a few things. And I've been speaking out for quite a while now, and making my place in support of the good and the sane. And
what kind of reaction did you get?
Well, you know, many people are upset with me in the Hollywood group, right, and family too. But no one really confronts me because they don't have the answers. They fear my knowledge, in a certain sense, like yourself. You got too many facts, too much information, and you're too eloquent to be argued with. And so people get to a certain, like if somebody says something to me and I say, well, do you want to talk about it? Come on my camper, we'll talk. And we sit down and say, well, do you know this? Do you know this? And then about a minute in, they say, you know, John, I really don't know too much about this stuff. And they leave.
But I want to judge you anyway.
Yeah. Well, it's funny, the people who don't want to know things, you know, or people who want to follow. They want to follow because they, obviously their careers are on their minds. They think that their careers are going to be hurt if they know too much about if they know too much against what the current flavor is, you know, of thought. But it's too bad. I've seen the schools been overtaken in my life. The teachers. There are no great teachers, it seems, anymore. There are, but boy, they're few and far between, the ones that are able to stand up to what's going on. And in our colleges, unbelievable. But of course, I know enough to know that this didn't happen accidentally. This didn't happen because a lot of people just got dulled. It happened because there were forces that wanted to propagandize, wanted to bring us around, wanted to attack America. And the first ones were the KGB. They had operatives everywhere in the 60s, for sure. And all those marches were sponsored by the Communist Party of the United States. And they had really, because we have freedoms in this country, freedom of speech, our First Amendment, freedom of speech. We have freedom. We allow everyone to talk. We allow everyone to be interviewed. We allow everybody to go into our schools and talk to our kids. And that's a wonderful thing up to a point. But if somebody wants to take advantage of us, the KGB and Russia at that time, and now China, I mean, it's an open door.
Yeah.
So we're suffering all of that now. And it's very, very important for people to educate themselves, to be brave enough to learn the truth, and then to speak up too. And I must say, I'm so enamored of the great people that are out there. You had this woman on your show recently, this beautiful woman from China.
Dr. Li Mingyang, yeah.
Oh my gosh, what a beautiful soul that is, huh? And
what a brave person.
Yes, and what is the mark of this woman? A beautiful smile.
Yes.
She's the most loving, available, open, delightful human being. Tremendously intelligent.
Yes.
And very brave. And she comes from a country that is, her country has marked her as an enemy, her government. Not the people of China, the many people of China who love our country and want to see us succeed. But she's a special one. But you see these special people all around us. It's wonderful to see a righteous human being. And that's why you're catching the imagination of so many people yourself, because you're telling the truth, and you've got a gift, a great gift, and you're able to deliver the truth because of that gift. So anyway, this is an amazing time. I'm very glad that I can contribute something at this time, and of course we're doing that for the people coming up, for our children and grandchildren and those children to come. We want the United States is the hope. The United States is the hope for China. And that's what this girl said. The Chinese need hope.
Yes.
Things are going to be better. And we've got to do it. We've got to provide it. Our country is going to do that too. I feel very strongly that we're going to win this battle. The truth will prevail.
So you are hopeful?
I am. I think that I talk about God. You suckered me into this. You see.
I loved it.
I'm telling you, you got me to say this is the real.
Well, because I knew that underneath all of this, normal people don't do what you've done, because why would you? Why wouldn't you just go along with what everyone else is doing? That's the easier path. So there's obviously some reason that you are brave enough to be different.
Yeah. Well, it must be the right time to tell that story. I've never told that story publicly before. So that initial story.
It's supposed to be hard. That's my favorite message from God I think I've ever heard.
It's supposed to be difficult. Whoa, what a voice too. Nice voice. It's supposed to be difficult. What? Anyway, so I think you see, each one of us is unique. And that's the one argument, the one piece of information that destroys Marxism. You know, we are unique. You can't lump us together. We are not the masses. We are individual souls, and we each have destiny. You know, you cannot suppress us in this way and make us something other, tell us what to do, how to dress, do the... No. You know, we have a destiny to fulfill. We need that freedom. Freedom is so important. And we brought that to the world, that understanding. We're so precious. This country is so precious. So anyway, I'm thinking that you know, God has not left his seat, and there's a plan at work, and I believe we will prevail. And I don't think it's going to take you know, me coming back in another body to do it. I think it's going to be done pretty soon.
So,
hopefully in my lifetime I will see a change that will make me feel like you know, the kids have a chance.
So a lot of people look around and say this is such a dark moment, and and it's clear, you know, it's going in the wrong direction. But you look at it and say,
well, here's what I say. Look, we know now, we're seeing more and more that the worms have come to the top. We know where the evil is.
yeah,
We know its dimensions. And therefore, everyone can see it. And if we can give people the proper spectacles to separate the wheat from the chaff, we're going to turn this thing over. I mean, it's a simple thing, isn't it, to say, would you like your children to learn something that's going to hurt them as they grow in life? Or would you like them to know the truth? Would you like them to get information that will make them better people? Or would you like them to be miserable? It's going to come down to questions like that. The mothers are powerful.
yes, they are.
Mothers are starting to realize what their children are being taught. And they're starting to go to those school boards and go to those, you know, principals and demand that their children are taught decency while they're in their school. Because they've seen through COVID even what the books that they're reading in school. They're teaching children what any sane, loving mother would say, don't read that, honey. Do you see? So they're starting to get the information, and there's going to be a response to all of this. And we see wonderful people coming up in the political realm, and we see more and more people seeing, even China sees Biden now and says, maybe we made a mistake. I mean, it's a crazy thing now that's going on. A lot of people are becoming aware. So I have every hope, and I feel very strongly that we're going to make a difference, that our efforts are not going to be in vain. Tucker Carlson's number one. I mean, come on.
Everything is a passing moment.
Anything can happen.
Anything can happen. Jon Voight, that is not the conversation I expected. It was way better than the conversation I expected.
Well, if this is the end, I didn't get enough from you. I'm interested in you. You know, where did you come from?
I have no idea. But we're having dinner.
Okay, all right. Well, but the folks aren't getting it. You see what I mean? Give it to the folks. Give them something. Tucker, before I leave, do me a favor and give them a little something about how you began to realize your strengths and give them forth in the way you have. Oh. I know for a long time I saw you around Fox before you got your show, and everyone was saying, when is Tucker going to get a show? You know, I was saying, Tucker should have a show. I mean,
Well, it's just like everything. It's
then also
just an accident.
No, it wasn't an accident.
I mean, I've worked at a lot of different places, and all of a sudden there were just openings, and then there was another opening, and I just happened to be standing there. And it honestly was that, a couple people resigned or were asked to leave, and I just happened to be standing right there. I mean, it's like, there was the Olympic team, and I was the ball boy, and it's like, oh, wow. We need someone to fill in today. So that's that's what happened.
It's interesting. And I also wanted to just ask you, I'm going to just keep you here for just a little longer on my show. Now, listen, when you do your monologues, right, which are amazing monologues, when do you write them? And do you have, like, I have lots of books that I read and stuff. Do you have literature? Do you have friends you call? Do you do any background when you write those?
Yeah, a ton. And but I sit and write from usually 5. I pour myself a cup of coffee at 5, and then I try to have the script in by 7:40 for an 8 p.m. show. So it doesn't give. So
you do it at
the producers a lot of chance.
But you have that in. You have a photographic memory.
I really don't, but I'm seething with internal intensity.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Just
you know what's the greatest thing? The greatest thing is that you say that, and it's real, right? And then you have that laugh, which is your signature. Lets everybody know everything's okay. It's great. Anyway, you're terrific.
Well, I really enjoyed that, and I'm really glad that you told that story about God speaking to you. I believe that completely. I don't think that that's silly. I think it's real, and I think it's wonderful. And I've never heard a message like that. It's supposed to be difficult. I'm going to be meditating on that. I am. I'm serious. Because normally when
each one of us gets our own. Do you see what I mean?
I think that's right.
I think they don't talk to you the way they talk to me.
Yes.
Do you see what I mean? So, everyone has their own way. And that's what was interesting to me, too.
Well, but in the Protestant denomination that shall remain nameless that I grew up in, God, in the imagination of the rectors of the churches I attended, was saying things like, everything's going to be fine, and, all this stuff. But to hear God say, it's supposed to be difficult.
Well, this is for me.
Well, but it's just so much deeper and more interesting.
In my suffering, I'm having and I said, it's so difficult. What was I talking about? So difficult. Yeah, it's so difficult to be to make so many mistakes and be such a jerk. Yeah, I could say that to myself,
Yeah.
But so difficult. I'm suffering. I deserve attention. I want love, right? It's supposed to be difficult.
That's heavy.
Yeah. And means you're going to pick up your shovel and go forth, or, whatever.
How old were you when that happened?
Pretty old, not young. I was in my 40s, I think.
That's pretty young. Seems young to me now.
Seems young to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was wonderful. I can't wait for dinner.
Great.
I wish you all could come to dinner, but you can't. The great Jon Voight. Greater than we realized. Name of the show is Tucker Carlson. Today, new episodes Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. We'll see you on the news channel, 8 p.m. weeknights.